Bryan Battle's a good fighter with a good record and unbeaten in his last 5 fights, but he just can't make weight. He doesn't make weight. For his last fight, they had to do a catch weight with Randy Brown at 175 because he missed weight, and 3 fights before that, they had to do a catch weight at 173 because Battle missed weight. So all those weight misses at 170 caused him to move to 185 this weekend to take on Nursultan Ruzabov, and he missed weight there by 4 pounds. He came in at 190 pounds, so he moved up a weight class 15 pounds and still missed weight by 4 pounds.
Yo, Bryan Battle, like, he's been forced up in weight, but he's still having a really hard time. Like, I don't understand, especially when he's having as much success as he's having right now in his career.
I don't know. Some guys just struggle with weight cuts, man. To go up a weight class and still really struggle, let's see what happens here.
Now he's up at 185, like 85. Forced to make 85.
You know, I mean, if you can't be a professional at this level and make weight,
especially if you're going up,
you might be brushing up your resume.
He got a lot of backlash after not making weight his last one. I'm surprised
that's where he's.
And this is a heavier weight class.
I don't think
190.
190. Wow.
Over, dude. Bryan Battle. They're not.
Bro,
Chicago's not going to.
Bro, I was with him. No, they won't.
They won't allow you. They will not allow you to actually.
I saw him with the 3. I saw him about 3 hours ago. I'm like, how's the weight? He goes, yeah, I'm about 4 pounds over, but he still had plenty of time.
He drank.
Yeah, he lied.
But nobody tells the truth. Nobody tells the truth.
It looks soft. Like, I don't understand. Like, 190?
Bryan Battle has been fined 30% of his purse after missing the middleweight limit. His fight with Nursultan Ruzabov is still on for UFC 319. Some people look at it as like organized cheating in the sense that they give up 30% of his purse to earn a little bit of an edge to get the victory. Will he get the victory over Nursultan? I don't know. Some people think that they should have a point deduction in the first round if you miss weight like that, but they're not going to do that. They don't do that, but they will fine him 30% of his purse. That was the original plan of the UFC and the original statement of the UFC, but they changed it after consideration. They just canceled the whole fight. So Ruzabov versus Battle is off the card. There's still 12 fights on the card, but 4 fights have been canceled over the period of UFC 19. Karine Silva is still on the card, however. She takes on Dione Barboza. Some people wonder if they're going to cut Bryan Battle. Maybe, but not necessarily. Anthony Johnson, the late Anthony Johnson, rest in peace to him. He actually had a similar situation to Bryan Battle, except worse. He would miss weight by a lot at 170, like 5 pounds and 6 pounds. So he also decided to move up to 185, and then he missed weight by 11 pounds, which was pretty insane at the time. But he remained on the roster, ended up having a great career, working his way to a title shot at 205. So he used to fight at 170, ended his career at 205. Hamza Chamay weighed in at 183 pounds, which is interesting. Usually guys have to, dehydrate themselves the most just to make championship weight at 185, but he came in 2 pounds lower than the limit at 183. He used to fight at 170, so this is a lot more easier for him, I would assume. Hamza Chamay's nutritionist says they really don't like to cut more weight than they have to, and the issue was an issue with a discrepancy between the UFC scales and the Athletic Commission scales. Before any speculation starts about Hamza's weight, he says, we weighed in on 2 UFC scales before stepping on the Athletic Commission's one. Our weight was 184.8, but I'm not sure if it was an operator issue, but I can assure you that Hamza's weight was right below the championship weight limit of 185. UFC doesn't go to Chicago that often, so the Illinois Commission is one that they don't use extremely often. DDP had no issues making weight. He never does. He made weight at 185 pounds, championship weight. He looks to defend his belt for the 3rd time. He won it against Strickland, defended against Strickland and Adesanya. He's looking to extend his win streak to 12 and possibly move up in the pound-for-pound rankings. Right now he's number 5. Then Pantoja, Merab, Makhachev, Topuria. DDP and Hamza Chamay looked the same size at the press conference when they stared down, putting to bed the notion that Hamza towers over him, which started when they first met at Fight Week, but that was due to camera angles and stuff like that. These two have been pretty respectful Fight Week. When they first met up, they were respectful at the press conference. There wasn't any crazy over-the-top trash talk, and the stare down, while intense, wasn't anything crazy by UFC standards. DDP was booed a lot at the press conference, not sure why. Maybe it has more to do with the popularity of Hamza Chamay than them not liking DDP. DDP seems to have a lot less of a following than Hamza Chamay. On Instagram, for example, Hamza has 10 million followers, whereas DDP has 871,000, so less than 1 million. But if he happens to win this weekend, I think his popularity will definitely increase. That number of followers will cross 1 million for sure if he gets the victory over this weekend.
This slide kind of sums it up. Even after repeatedly being accused of fraud, theft, and bribery, Don King paid more than the UFC. And we see what's happening right now. The UFC is trying to carve off a little piece for themselves around the Ali Act so that they can then dominate boxing like they had MMA. Well, if I was to tell you Don King wants to get back in the business of boxing and he just wants to carve off a little piece of the Ali Act so he can do so, what would your response be? Probably not. But Dana White is trying to do that. TKO is trying to do that.
I would a million times over, be promoted by Don King than by Dana White under this structure that he is now trying to recreate in boxing. No boxer would ever want to be promoted by Don King in today's landscape. That would never happen. But all the MMA fighters that are currently signed by UFC, currently controlled by Dana White, would far rather be controlled by Don King because they would make way more money.
And the UFC doesn't need to do a workaround for their corruption. It is right in front of everyone. By controlling the rank and controlling the title. They decide who gets the title shot. They made that very clear to us. The UFC had a summit 16, 17 years ago when they brought in all the fighters, give us media training, tell us how to conduct ourselves and such. And at the end, there was a question and answer. And one of the fighters asked, at what point will you be releasing the ranking so we know who's deserving of the next title shot? And Dana White started laughing. He said, I don't give a fuck who you think deserves a title shot. I put together the fights that sell pay-per-views. That's not sports. That's a reality show. Matchmaking. The UFC decides who you fight. Joe Silva told us, if you do, the matchmaker for the UFC, if you do not like the first fight that I offer you, you sure as shit won't like the second. The ranking control. The UFC controls the ranking. It allows the fighters that they like, that they want to promote, to skip the line, to get to the top of the title shots. The image rights. The UFC owns me in perpetuity. The merchandising. Same thing. The sponsorships. The UFC crushed all the sponsorships for all the fighters. I used to have logos from companies that wanted to associate themselves with me. The UFC did away with all of that. The regulatory structure, the UFC controls everything. They answer to no one and no cross promotion. This isn't sport. This is pro wrestling. They modeled the UFC after pro wrestling, not boxing, because they knew they could not monopolize the sport because of the Ali Act. And the legislative history of the Ali Act shows that it was put in place to prevent a monopoly, much like if a golfer or a tennis person. Go ahead.
Yeah, so if I was a tennis player and I was operating under the UFC model, I would not be able to compete for anybody other than Wimbledon because there would be nobody other than Wimbledon. It would just be Wimbledon. There's no more US Open. There's none of that. It's just one person. It's just one promoter. And if you don't like what they give you, if they don't like what they offer you, you're out of a job. Something that you have worked your entire life to get to.